Greetings! I recently got back into the sport of golf after about 10 years of not really playing, and naturally I needed all new equipment, and I decided I needed a golf simulator in my house because who doesn't want one of those? So I went online and I started researching it, and I came across the OptiShot by a company called Dancing Dog Golf, which admittedly is kind of a strange name for a golf company. It doesn't inspire a lot of confidence, but the reviews were overall pretty good, so I decided to give it a shot. I found this one on Craigslist used, and this is the OptiShot 1. However, it's important to note that the only difference between the OptiShot 1 and the OptiShot 2 is the software. And anybody with the OptiShot 1 can pay to upgrade the software to OptiShot 2, and you have an OptiShot 2, which is essentially what I did because the OptiShot 1 wasn't compatible with Mac. So it was a fairly inexpensive upgrade. I'm not going to mention any prices here because those are always subject to change. I don't want to date this video. But you can pick one of these up really, really cheap on Craigslist used, or buy it fairly inexpensively on Amazon. And if you do get one of the older ones, that's the OptiShot 1, you can also inexpensively upgrade it to the OptiShot 2. The hardware is identical, it's just the software that's different, and you can always upgrade that. So what I'd like to do here is I'm just going to give my overall thoughts and impressions and my opinion on the product because, like I said, there were reviews online, but they were kind of contradictory. And some of the details that I was interested in weren't covered. So I'm going to try to cover those here and just give you kind of overall my impressions and hopefully help you make a decision as to whether or not this is right for you. So let's start out with the basics. What is the OptiShot? The OptiShot is essentially this piece of hardware that you see here combined with golf simulator software. They work together to create essentially a golf simulator you can buy and use in your home fairly inexpensively. Now this is actually a head tracking unit. So there's a big difference between simulators that track the club head, simulators that track the ball. Those would be called launch monitors, so they actually track the launch of the ball. There's also simulators that do both. Anytime you're getting into launch monitors and head tracking units, you're getting into the thousands and thousands of dollars. There's some options like TrackMan, cost over $20,000. There's one called GC2, which is awesome. When you combine it with the head tracking unit option, you're well over $10,000 for that. So at a few $100s for this piece of hardware, that's extremely inexpensive compared to what else is in the field. Now the way that it works is essentially you lay this down on the ground, you put the ball here in the center, you swing your club over it. You use real golf clubs. You can use real golf balls as well. However, because it's only tracking the head of your golf club, it doesn't matter if you're using balls, foam balls, real balls, or any balls. You can swing without a ball at all and it'll work just fine. So it works by monitoring the head as it passes over these two strips of infrared sensors and lights. So essentially, the club head passes over the first one, it takes a measurement, it passes over the second one, it takes a measurement, and then the computer essentially computes how long it took to go across there, so it's able to measure club head speed. It looks at the angle of the club face as it passes over the ear, so it knows if you're swinging with the face open or closed. And it also looks at where it actually crosses. So it can try to estimate whether or not you hit the ball in the center, heeled it, or toed it. So all very, very good calculations that enable it to simulate or guesstimate where the ball would have gone. So what are some of the limitations? Well, it's not a launch monitor, so it has no idea where the ball went. So it's going to see the club head travel across, and it's going to do its best guess as to where it went. And it's going to assume, for the most part, that you made solid contact. In fact, it pretty much assumes you made solid contact. You can whiff the ball, and it'll still show a nice shot on the screen because it doesn't know what happened with the ball. It just knows that the club head traveled over these sensors at a particular speed and angle, and it's going to guess that you hit the ball well. If you're good at golf and you hit the ball well consistently, no big deal. If you're just learning, it's going to be a little weird because you might shank one, you might completely miss one, and you see this nice beautiful shot on the screen and things just aren't matching up. So this is not a launch monitor. It doesn't know where the ball went, it doesn't know how well you hit it. If you can live with that, then the rest works pretty well. Another thing to note is this suffers from all the same limitations that golf simulators just suffer from in general. So if you've never played on a golf simulator, there's a few things to keep in mind. One is they can't simulate lie or angle. So on a real golf course, you might be on the side of a hill, you might be in the rough, you might be in the sand. On a golf simulator, you're always going to have a perfect lie, and it's going to be perfectly flat. So you're always going to be practicing that shot, which in the real world, it would be great if you always had that shot. However, that's not the case. So golf simulators don't take the place of practicing on a real golf course. right? They're a great supplement. It's especially nice if you have one in your house. You can just go out and hit some balls without having to go to the golf course. But it's not a replacement for playing a real round of golf. That needs to be understood just about simulators in general, not just this one specifically. So this is the unit itself. This is what it looks like in the mat. So this larger mat is optional. It's not included. I would highly recommend it. It's nice and thick. It helps keep everything in place. When you're standing or swinging, this doesn't move around as a result. You can see the 2 lines of infrared lights there that sense the club head as it passes over the first and the second, and the little spot for a tee or where you can set the ball. As you can see, it's pretty durable. I've been really smacking it. Like I said, I have a tendency to hit fat, and this is really the only damage that I've been able to see. And this entire mat is Velcro and replaceable. But the unit itself seems to be holding up really well. In fact, earlier, when I first got this, I was swinging my driver, and unlike my irons, I swing my driver really hard. So I was reading like 120 mile per hour club head speed on my driver, and I hit this a few times really hard. In fact, I cracked the shaft of my driver. I don't know if it was by hitting this or if it happened at the driving range, but I did crack the shaft of my driver. But this thing is a champ. It is holding up. So something you really need to consider before you even start shopping for any kind of simulator is whether or not you have enough space for it. So space is going to be the primary limiting factor for why anybody can't get one. I'm actually in my garage right now, less than ideal, but this was the only spot in my house where I had enough clearance on all sides and above to actually swing a golf club as hard as I could without having to worry about breaking things. On the box it says 8.5 feet is the minimum distance. And I would tend to agree that that is the absolute minimum ceiling height that you should even consider one of these. The ceilings where I'm standing right now are 9 feet, so from a height standpoint, it's perfectly fine. But the one thing it doesn't talk about in the box, the recommendations that you really need to look into, is the space around where you're going to be swinging. Because when you swing a golf club, it's not just up and down. You go back and you come through and swing it around. So any one object, whether it's a light fixture, in this case, a pole, the tracks for your garage door. There's a lot of stuff that can get in the way that you might not realize until you actually take a club out and test. So what I did to test was I took a club and I stood in one spot and I had my arms fully extended and I just went around to see what I could touch with it. And if I couldn't touch anything, I felt pretty comfortable swinging. I started off swinging slower and then eventually picked it up. Now, the important thing to remember is that your swing might be different than somebody else's. My brother came over on his very first swing, he just stuck his driver straight up into the ceiling. I don't know why he did that. That's not a normal golf swing at all to finish and then go like this, but he did it. So keep that in mind as well. The more space that you have, the better. Because the last thing you want is to spend a whole bunch of money on a simulator, get it all set up, and then find out you can't even take full swings. So you kind of defeat the purpose of it entirely. So the software that comes with is really quite great, especially considering the golf simulator software can run into thousands of dollars just for the software, not including the hardware. This comes bundled. It's actually quite full of features, tons of options. The graphics are just fine for a golf simulator. It runs well even on my 2-year-old MacBook Air, which is not by any means a gaming machine. And it's easy to navigate. The user interface is pretty straightforward. There's surprisingly a lot of variability in options as far as changing weather conditions, the physics, the graphics settings. You can play with up to 4 people. There's a driving range. There are multiple full 18-hole courses. You can also go into each course and play particular holes, or you can pick holes and practice. So you can pick where you want to hit from and just hit from that same spot over and over and over, like if you're driving for the green or shooting at like an island green or something like that. As far as software features, there are only a couple things that I would say are missing that I would like to see, and that's all in the area of practice. So there is a driving range with a few pins that you can aim for, and it'll measure how close you get to the pin. However, there are no games really focused on that. I think it would be awesome to have some skills challenges where it gives you a distance to try to hit or a target to try to hit to that you can play with multiple people, and each person gets a few shots. You can see who gets the closest overall. There's nothing like that built into the software that makes it easy to do. You could probably do that yourself with some of the tools that are there, but it would be cumbersome, a little bit difficult, especially after having a few beers. So we're going to go ahead and launch up the driving range and just hit a few shots. Now within the software you have the ability to customize and tweak your own club set and then calibrate per club. So right out of the box it should work. Some people have trouble with clubs though, and you have the option to calibrate them. It takes about, a minute per club. I haven't had any issues with club heads reading. I've used multiple drivers and irons and they all seem to work just fine, but some people do have issues. So far up the driving range here. Another thing that's pretty awesome is there are courses you can pay to download, and there is a monthly subscription available for online multiplayer, and they do tournaments, which is actually kind of cool. So once you boot things up and you've got your driving range, you're on the course, you actually tell the system what club you're using, because again, it tracks the head, but it doesn't necessarily know what it's the head to. So if you tell it it's a driver, it's going to kind of assume that your launch angle is going to be a driver launch angle. If you tell it's a 7-iron, etc., etc. So for this, on the driving range, I'm going to switch it to 7-iron. And there isn't really a target that works well for my 7-iron shot. So I hit my 7-iron maybe 140 yards if I hit it well. My iron swing speed is much, much lower than my driver swing speed. It's something I'm working on. So like I said before, you have the option to put the ball down on the mat and hit it, or just swing with no ball. I prefer to at least have a foam ball. I would love to have real golf balls and use them, which you can. However, I cannot because I don't have the space for it. I wanted to get a practice net or an impact screen, and just due to the location where I have to have this where I can swing freely without hitting anything, there's no nice spot to hit into because I've got this workbench and these cabinets here, unfortunately. I feel like having real golf balls would be a game changer in terms of just the experience that you have playing on this machine. But we're going to go ahead and hit a foam one now, and I'll show you how it works. I forgot to mention, that's how I know I hit a good shot, is when it ricochets off this wall and comes directly back and hits me in the face or the head, which is another great reason not to use real golf balls in this case. Very cool. I'll hit a few more. You can see that 60-mile-per-hour club head speed, so a little low, as I mentioned earlier. Outside in swing path, that is my swing path. And the face was closed about 3 degrees, which is something that I'm doing to compensate the swing path to straighten out my shots. The shot went 107 yards, so to be honest, that's probably a little short, but I don't think I was swinging all that hard. So let's try it again, see if I can get it right around 140 where I typically hit. Okay, so that one hooked a little bit. 132 yards, really closed club face, so I'm not sure how accurate that was, to be honest. I think that within the software, within the hardware, there's certainly the opportunities for misreads. That could have been one of them. Let's just hit a few more and look and see what happens here. I don't typically hook my iron shots. Hit that one pretty well. Okay, so 160 yards, 80 miles an hour, 83 miles an hour. Slightly open, so that's more about what I would expect to see. Outside in swing path, slightly open. Swung pretty hard, center contact. Sorry, I'm just picking up these foam balls. So I would say that pretty accurately represents my shot in the real world. Hit another one, and then we'll look at all of them together. These balls just get flying everywhere. So 137 yards, right around that 140-yard mark. Closed club face, which I'm trying to do, so I think overall that's pretty accurate. So you can pull up your swing statistics, which is really cool. So it'll show you for this session with this club, what you've done. In this case, I've swung 4 times. Average distance was 134 yards, so I said maybe about 140 is where I was hitting my 7-iron. That's pretty right on. Longest was 160, shortest was 107. Outside in swing path, absolutely. I do that. I verified that on TrackMan. I've taken lessons. That's how I'm swinging. Average club speed, 72 miles an hour. So, although each shot might not be exactly right on, if you swing a few times, it all averages out to be a pretty accurate tool just for kind of measuring your swing and getting some stats about it, which I find extremely interesting and useful. The other cool thing that you can do is you can actually pull up and see the shot tracers from all the shots that you've hit so far. So I'll go ahead and do that. So kind of a dispersed path. I think that one that hooked is kind of an outlier, and that's not really a very accurate one. I'm going to go ahead and hit another one. Typically, you'll see most of my shots just kind of trail off to the right a bit. Outside in swing path, slightly closed face. Let's try that one more time. Try to get the swing speed up. I think I hit that one pretty fat. To be honest, those last two I hit fat, and although they went halfway decent in the game, the distance was severely handicapped as a result. The swing speed dropped because I hit the ground just past the first sensor and slowed my club head down through the impact, which is exactly what would have happened in real life. I think it would have been even more detrimental in real life. I'm going to try to get a really solid hit in without hitting it fat. Nice high swing speed and see what happens. So I didn't hit the mat at all. In fact, I topped the ball. It would have been a horrific golf shot. But this is a great example of how the club head tracker doesn't know how good a quality the ball contact was. So it looked at that last shot, it's at 85 mile an hour swing speed, and it figured that the ball would have gone 168 yards, which for me would have been a phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal 7-iron shot. I don't think I've ever hit my 7-iron that far. And in this case, in the real world, that ball would have just kind of rolled off the mat, and I would have been embarrassed at the driving range. So, a great example of some of the limitations of the system. It's certainly not perfect, but overall, I'm getting a pretty accurate representation of how I hit the golf ball. I'm going to hit one more, and then we're going to talk about impact on the club face. So I crushed that one as well. It showed a bit of a hook, and to be honest, I don't think I'm hooking it. Yeah, it says closed 12.5 degrees. So one of the other things about this system is it uses light for some reason as well as infrared. They recommend using fluorescent bulbs. I don't have any fluorescent bulbs in my garage. All of them are halogen and incandescent, which it says are not ideal. Sunlight also is not ideal. So that could have something to do with why I'm getting these strange readings here and there. Like I said, that one said it was closed 12 degrees, which is pretty significant. I don't think I close it that much, especially since I have a tendency to swing it with the club face open. And I'm trying to make a conscious effort just to get it closed a little bit. So closing at 12 degrees is something I just basically never do with my iron. So I think that was a misread. We're going to do a little bit of an experiment as it pertains to face contact, whether you hit it on the center, the toe, or the heel. Now it does give you an estimate of where you contact the ball. However, I don't believe they're too accurate, to be honest. So I'm going to use this athlete's foot powder spray so I can see actually where I make contact in the face of the club, and then see where the software says I made the contact. So if you don't have any of this stuff, it is awesome. Rick Shields was talking about it. I went out and bought some, and it's completely changed how I spend time at the driving range and my understanding of how club face impact changes ball flight and the distance especially. So if you don't have some, go pick some up. It works really, really well as a training tool. Club face is ready to go. I'm going to go ahead and hit one. I'm going to go for, just try for center face contact first, just to see how it works. So that ball came back and hit me, which generally means it's a pretty good shot. However, looking at the club itself, that was off the toe. And the software is telling me that was center club face, which it clearly was not. So I'm going to go ahead and swing again, and I'll go for center this time and see what it says. Pretty good shot. This one was off the toe, almost an identical spot. It says center once again. We're going to hit one more. I'm going to try to exaggerate this and hit it off the heel, which typically I have no trouble doing, but I've been practicing and now I can't seem to do it. So, all right, we're going for a heel shot here. So that actually was pretty much in the center of the club face. And it says it was in the center of the club face. So basically I'm thinking it's pretty lenient on that, and it's not a very accurate way to determine, which, to be honest, you don't need this to know if you're hitting center, heel, or toe. Just spray some of that athlete's foot powder on there and you're good to go. All right, we loaded up a practice course here, or actually a real course. We set the practice mode, which is really cool because you can just jump on there and pick any spot along the fairway to hit from, and it'll show you kind of your previous shots as well. So in this case, we are going to do about 110 yards out to the pin. It's set to pitching wedge. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my pitching wedge, put the ball down, and just shoot for the pin. Let's see what happens here. First, I'm going to take a practice swing because I've added a ladder to give you guys a better angle. I want to make sure I don't smack the club. Alright. So that was a terrible shot. I topped it. However, the software doesn't know that, and I actually went over the pin, 123 yards. It's probably a little far for my pitching wedge, especially since I was kind of holding back because I'm worried about that ladder. Let's try that again. A little fat, but good solid contact. That one came up shorter. We'll hit one more for the pin, and then I'll try to throw in some variation, hook and slice it. I'll turn off these old shot tracers as well. So that was probably my best shot of the three. Oh yeah, that was a good shot. Right at the pin, 14 feet from the hole. So that's a good one to use as a reference point. So now I'm going to intentionally open up my club face and see if I can hit a slice. So I'm not going to make any effort to close it in my swing. So pretty good contact. It's showing a hook though. So it's closed 12 degrees. So that is totally off. It could be a lighting issue or calibration issue. I'm going to try to get it with a very exaggerated open club face and just no ball. So that was outside in with an open club face, totally open. 24 degrees. Heel contact, not sure because there wasn't a ball there. Let's try it again without a ball and just try for a neutral face angle, not open or closed. See what happens. So that was outside in, I could feel that. Okay, face angle was square, so pretty accurate there. Outside in swing path. Let's try, I'm going to intentionally close up the face on this shot and just see what happens. Oh yeah, so nice hook. That's probably what I would have expected with that shot. 12 degrees closed, outside in. That's about as much as I can hook a golf shot, at least with irons. All right, let's try and slice again, intentionally opening up a bit. With a pretty high swing speed. Yeah, so that one a few shots earlier, I felt like it swung harder than that, but that shot a few shots earlier that hooked, which should have sliced, I think was just a misread, because these last few have been just dead on accurate. I'm going to try another slice, see what happens. It feels weird trying to do this intentionally. Alright, that was outside in, yep, big time slice. Still hit the green though. Not as big of a slice as I was expecting. It says it was only open 6 degrees, which is quite possible. I wasn't starting with it too intentionally open. This one is way open. I'm expecting huge open reading on this one. Oh yeah, so that's in a bunker. Almost in a bunker. So yeah, 21 degrees open. That was definitely open. That was, and that's about the shot I would expect. Now let's try to square it up again for a nice straight shot. And 15 feet from the pin, close 1.7 degrees. Try the same thing. Keep it nice and square. 17 feet from the pin. I said it was open 4.8. To be honest, I'm not sure. It could have been. And I'm not a very great golfer to begin with, so I'm not sure that I have that much control. But let's try one. I'm going to try to close it a bit. I don't think it read closed that time. Definitely got the speed. I picked up the speed intentionally. This is open 1 degree. 118 yards, which on a swing like that with my pitching wedge, that's about what I would expect. Go ahead and try it again. Try to close it, intentionally close it, which is a problem. I have trouble closing the club face, so it's not surprising to me that last one might have been open. I think I straightened out my swing path on that one, and it was slightly closed. Let's see. Huh? Still outside in. I'm going to see if I can get a straight swing path. Try to focus on wrapping around my body more. No, that was definitely outside in. Alright, I need to do an inside out swing. I don't know if I can. I feel like I should test it. That was either straight or outside in. Terrible shot. Terrible shot. But I'm interested to see the path, because I really changed things up. Okay, inside out. Really open club face. Interesting. That's like one of the first times I've ever had it say inside out, but I've never actually tried to swing inside out, I guess. Because it feels so awkward, but let's try that again. See if I can get a straight swing path. It's going to be, I don't know. I'll give it a shot. Let's go on to the right. No. So let's see here. All over the place. So realistically, I mean, I was trying to hit the golf ball right, I was trying to hit the golf ball left, and it certainly did go right and left, as it would in real life. So look at the swing statistics. So 18 shots with my pitching wedge, average distance 99 yards. I'd say that's probably accurate. You know, 120 is a good shot for me with my pitching wedge. Face angle is open 4.9 degrees. That sounds about right. My issue is open club face and outside in swing path. Club head speed seems about right as well. Bear in mind, some of these shots were like crazy shots I was trying to change my swing for, so I'm not expecting to match exactly. Very interesting. This is actually quite fun to just make changes in the swing and see how it reads out on the system, because it seems to be pretty accurate. I'm going to go for just my normal swing, which should be outside in. So I'm going to try to slightly close the club face, like 1 or 2 degrees, and maybe about a 70, 75 mile per hour club head speed is what I would say like my normal swing, or a good swing would be for me. I crushed that. 120 yards, bounce backwards to 119 on the dot. 75 miles an hour club head. It was open 1.6, very outside in swing path. So to be honest, that's about what I would expect to see. I'm going to do one more and see if I can close that club face up, because I don't think I did that time. And the problem really presents itself for me in the longer irons. Having that open club face with that swing path causes big time slices. With these wedges and 9-iron, it doesn't seem to make much of a difference. 112 yards. Open. Yeah, I don't know about that. I'm not sure that the club face is open. I'm going to try that again. I'm really going to focus on closing it this time. Okay, I got to close that time because that ball flight path was dead straight. 120 yards again. Close 0.8 degrees, outside in, 73 mile per hour club head speed. So 120 yards is range verified. I've got a range finder. I go to the driving range and pick out the pins. So 120 with my pitching wedge is pretty much dead on a really well hit shot for me. And I've just hit 3 in a row within a few yards of that. Something else to touch on really quick is putting. So in OptiShot, you have the option to putt the ball all the way through into the hole. You can also turn on auto putt. So once you hit the green, it'll estimate how many putts or how many strokes it would take and automatically do that for you. Or you can turn on gimmies. So once you're within, for example, 10 feet or any radius that you set, it'll automatically sync the putt and just give you a stroke. It works surprisingly well. So most simulators have a lot of trouble with putting. This is no exception. It does work for a simulator it works well. Compared to real putting, in my opinion, it's not anything like real putting. It's not a good practice at all. In order for this to read, you have to pass the head of the putter over both sensors, and they're about, I would say 10 inches apart. So for some putts, the 6-inch putt, you're not necessarily swinging the putter 10 inches of travel. So you've got to kind of overextend what you would normally do, which feels awkward. And to me, it's just not a good way to practice. I've also found that the putting is just much, much more touchy than it is in real life. You've got to swing much slower to avoid hitting the ball all the way across the green. And even when you set the greens physics on slow, you still have to swing pretty slow. So putting with this, I'm not a fan of it. I think you can get some golf balls and just putt around the carpet in your house and get much better practice, or just go to the range and putt on an actual practice green. But as far as getting out, as far as just swinging golf clubs around in your house, getting some off-season practice, or just having some fun, it's a great option. It works surprisingly well. The hardware holds up. The graphics are good. On an impact screen with real golf balls, I think this would be a blast. You have a bunch of friends over, you could drink some beers, you can play all night long. Without an impact screen, with just the foam balls, I find it to be less than fulfilling. It's worked for me as a great training aid. I love seeing the stats from my swing, and they seem to be relatively accurate. I have spent quite a bit of time swinging on a TrackMan system, and I haven't put them side by side yet. I'm actually planning on doing that in another video. But outside of just analyzing individual swings as a whole, when you look at the averages, it tends to really match up with how you're swinging. So if you're trying to diagnose a problem with your swing or just get some numbers around your swing so you can start looking up remedies to improve it, or find some drills to practice and see how they influence your swing in real time, this is unbeatable. I don't know of anything else in the price range where you can get club head speed, face angle, path, instant feedback, relatively accurate. This is just really, really cool when it comes to that. So final impressions, if you are absolutely adamant about getting a simulator in your house and you're not in the market to spend more than $2,000 total, all in with like impact screen and everything, this is basically your only option that I'm aware of, and it's a good option. I think it's a lot of fun with, like I said, with the impact screen and real golf balls. I don't know that I'd be able to tear myself away from this thing. However, with the foam balls, for me, it left a lot to be desired. It is a very cool practice tool, although I don't think any simulator, especially not this one, is a substitute for going to the driving range or actually getting out on the golf course. You're not going to get the same feel and the same practice and the same experience. So this is very much a supplement to that. And if you view it as a supplement to that and a way to just get some stats about your swing and have some fun in the meantime, then it's a great option. Relatively inexpensive, like I said. I picked this one up used for practically nothing. I also feel like if you pick it up and you don't like it, you can resell it for just about what you paid for it, so it's a very low risk proposition. That's it. Like, comment, and subscribe. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it helped you out.